Association of India, and this will be the last session of the day. My name is Sriraj Deshmukh, and I will be your host for this session. So, moving on, the topic of discussion for this session is rapidly changing landscape of Indian audience and its impact on product mix. I would like to introduce you to the session moderator, Ms. Lakshmi Chaudhary, who is the founder at Splainer Media. We welcome you, Ms. Lakshmi. And now I would like to welcome the panelists for the session, Mr. Indraneel Roy, Chief Executive Officer at Outlook Group, Mr. Mithun Kedambi, Head Product and Revenue at The Wire, and last but not the least, Mr. Shiven Khanna, who is the National Head Digital Ad Sales at India Today. We welcome you all. Now I would like to hand things over to Ms. Lakshmi to kickstart the session. Over to you, Ms. Lakshmi.
Hi, thank you. I'm really delighted to be here with such a fantastic audience and with a fantastic panel. So let me just briefly introduce myself. I'm Lakshmi Chaudhary. I'm the founder of something called Splainer Private Limited, Splainer.in. We're sort of the next generation newsletter. We're trying to disrupt how you get your daily news. I wanted to start this conversation actually having all of you, each of you, talk about a little bit about your product and your product journey and how you see your audience, how your product meets the needs of the audience, so to speak. So maybe Indraneel, you want to start first?
Sure. Hi, thank you, Lakshmi. I'm Indraneel. I am the CEO of the Outlook Group. Outlook is a legacy brand. We launched 25 years back. In fact, we are celebrating 25 years of Outlook. Outlook disrupted the magazine market when it launched, but honestly, with the digital advancement and with all the digital changes that happened over the last 25 years, we had not really played a very important role. Well, as you all may know that Outlook was always led very strongly by editors, and they had their own thought process and vision to sort of lead the organization ahead. So from where we were and where we are today, we have started working towards building up our digital assets, and we have been working on that for the last few months. We have recently come together and created our one single newsroom to also ensure that Outlook and Outlook Business and Outlook Money and Outlook Traveler all come under one roof. So that's the first step that we have taken to work together under one newsroom. And the one newsroom also, the idea is to ensure that we have become a digital first organization. So there are lots of steps that we are taking one after the other. Just to sort of give you a little bit of a background about our product, we have always been a very mirrored product to the magazine. So whatever the magazine content would always ride as the first lead on our magazine, on our digital platform, and that has been our journey so far. We also believe, and we also strongly feel even today, that we must hold on to the quality of readers, and our whole attention and focus will be to ensure that we drive good quality readership to our platform. We want to remain as a niche. We are not in a hurry to become a very big player in this place, because we realize the challenges that also comes along with it if you try to be very aggressive in terms of building up numbers. And we have also built up our own subscription platform. And in the subscription platform, we have started it's just about 3 to 4 months old. So in the subscription platform, we have started building up our subscription numbers, both in terms of monthly, yearly, quarterly subscriptions. And also we have started, and in fact, we are the first media company to launch micropayments. And on that platform, we are seeing quite an interesting shift. And people are paying for micro content. People are interested to pay for micro content. And I think, there is a lot of new sort of modeling or science that we will learn as we go along, typically on the micropayment front, or for that matter, the subscription front. So this is a little that I want to share about Outlook. And well,
two things.
Over to you.
Micropayment, they pay for a article, is it?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So you started basically saying that we're going to bet on our quality of our content. It's a really great article and you'll pay for that.
That's right.
Right. And is everything behind a paywall? Are you on a leaky paywall, or can you read certain number of stories for free?
Yeah, so the magazine is only behind the paywall. The rest of the content is open.
Okay.
So it's just the magazine content which is behind the paywall. Even the micropayment also is behind the is only for the magazine.
Okay. All right. I got it. Shivain?
Hi, Lakshmi.
Mm. Hi.
So, just thanks for introducing me. For a quick introduction on myself, I'm National Head Sales at India Today Group. And broadly, when I look at the product journey, I'm actually trying to see it from the monetization point of view. From where we were to where we are, it's been a huge churn that we've been seeing. We started off as being legacy brands, right? And a lot of legacy brands. We've been from the lifestyle space to the new space and the business space. We
Mm.
started off as traditional brands, and over the years, we actually started, adopting and adapting to our user interests, right? Seeing what our user behaviors are. We embarked upon the digital first channels, right? So we came in with London Top, we came in with our mobile thugs. We saw
Mm.
great success over there. Users have been lapping us up on our video channels. Most of them are getting critical acclaim. We moved beyond that. We also realized that in today's day and age, when we are looking at the younger generation, right, whether you're a brand or whether you're a publisher, the
Mm.
younger generation is more and more looking at esports and e-gaming as mainstream entertainment. For
Mm.
them, it's a whole other universe when we're talking to them. And we understood that. We launched India Today Gaming. We've actually launched the first ever league format, for
Mm.
called ESPL, right? So this is predominantly around gaming, and
Mm.
that's actually just falling exactly, in understanding what the user interests are. Uh, we've also built on to the fact that there is growing, demand by users for audio content.
Mm.
Likewise, we launched our podcast on Hashtag Radio. Very happy to state some of our podcasts are, trending
Mm.
as top news podcast on Apple Podcast, right? So there's
Mm.
been a great play that we've been operating at, and honestly, for me to say that we've gone from point A to point B is not that simple. It's been a whole churning process that's been happening over the years. But
Mm.
simply put, if I was to just look at how we have followed revenue, the product line from the revenue perspective, also, it's always been user first. Like, people say digital first, people say
Mm.
technology first. I keep hearing words of in the new nuances of social first, but it's still going to be user first for us always,
Mm.
and that's actually been the way we have even focused on building products that are monetizable.
So
So,
your podcast, if you do it, it's Hindi, is it? Aaj tak. Yeah, not
uh,
English, right? And was that a
so
decision? Do you have an English as well?
We have a podcast that's there in Hindi. We have multiple podcasts that are there in Hindi. There are
Mm.
also works that we are looking at in which other languages we want to expand upon, right?
Mm.
We
Mm.
saw that there was a big gap, in the podcast market when you're looking at it, because predominantly everyone has perceived podcast as being either urban centric, or you're seeing that as, English, leaning towards the English speaking audiences. uh, Somewhere I have this very strong belief that, with Aajtak Radio, we've gone ahead and created a whole new audience,
Mm.
that
Mm.
existed on podcast. Today, when I'm talking to my brands, today when I'm talking to my marketers, they understand that. Some, quick thoughts that I can share, that some of my
Mm.
tier two towns are there in the top five, whereas the top metro city is not, right?
Mm.
So that's the penetration, and I think by going local, we've actually added on to a whole new audience for podcast.
Well, that's really great because you don't think of podcast seems very metro, very English first, very sort of a little more westernized. But that's great because actually it makes sense. If radio is big in India, and why wouldn't podcast be? And especially the penetration is even higher because unlike text always has barriers, which audio doesn't or a video doesn't, right? In terms of literacy or whatever it is, but or language facility. But it's really great that it would make perfect sense for like a podcast to go to tier two, even tier three, actually,
So, so
right?
perhaps you rightly, hit the nail. The fact is, today, I don't need to say this. Everyone understands the convenience that podcast gives you as multitasking. I mean, if I was a legacy brand and if I was constantly, imagine if I was a user who was driving or in the gym working out, what would my preference of content be? If I'm on the treadmill or if I'm driving, I definitely don't want to be reading that long format of content. It's not that convenient. While video is there, it suddenly adds to another sense of mind that I need to occupy, which is my site. Audio gives me that benefit of multitasking. So you seeing that adoption. Brands are also understanding this. There are a lot of brands who are now built a lot of focus specifically around audio. So that's a great opportunity for us also.
Great. So, what about you, Mithun? You want to talk to us about Wire and the journey of Wire?
So hi Lakshmi, hi Indranil, hi Shivan. So I think we are the youngest of the lot. Lakshmi's product aside, I think amongst the three of us, uh, we're the Wire is the youngest. We started our journey in 2015. We completed 6 years this May, and we're also probably fundamentally the most different compared to the others because we are primarily funded by our readers. So we sort of pushed through with this reader funded model way back when we started, but actually in right earnest somewhere around 2017, 2018, where we sort of put a lot of laid a lot of groundwork to sort of allow for readers to sort of continuously keep giving to the Wire. So in that way, I mean, that's the slight difference. We also sort of got into the space right when the shift happened pretty comprehensively from primary desktop consumption to mobile consumption. So around 2015 is when you sort of started seeing that shift move away from in favor of desktop to in favor of the mobile. So when we sort of started, we were, although you sort of look at the website and imagine all your content and all your design to sort of flow through first through the desktop and then into the mobile, we actually had to sort of switch the approach and say how does mobile work better first, and then we'd look at desktop. And the other point of inflection also was video consumption in news in India sort of took off in that period. So we had a very clear focus again from the get-go about doing video, which allowed us to sort of grow our YouTube channel, which is around 3.5 million subscribers at this point. So these years have primarily been for us to sort of lay a lot of the tech groundwork. And for us, it's been a little slower than probably other places because we don't have a bulk of investment to sort of do in areas like tech while keeping the business running otherwise. So there has been a lot of piecemeal arrangements made, particularly in the areas of mobile and video until now. In the last couple of years, we've sort of had a very clear focus on investing in building tech out. And in the next few months, actually, you'll see a flurry of different kinds of products, particularly around audience consumption patterns that we'll be rolling out. And that's so if you were to sort of look at our journey over the last 5 years, I'd say that we've spent the first 4 steadying our ship in a sense, right? Steadying our ship on making ourselves sustainable to a certain extent, making our journalism our core focus. And now, in the last 18 months or so, since we've invested in technology, we've invested in sort of getting the right talent on, getting the right partners in, and also understanding what is it that our audiences want, because we have a very robust way of communicating with them. We call them up on a regular basis. We have video calls with our readers on a very regular basis, donors rather, on a very regular basis. So we have a very live way of gathering this feedback, which goes into a CRM, and then we sort of evaluate what is it, where are the gaps that we sort of need to fill in, what are the new areas that we could explore, and such. And now we're in the process of actually rolling out a few products which would be around a distribution of news in a different format, whether we're sort of hitting your messaging apps, whether we're sort of coming through to your inbox, but Pretty similar to what Lakshmi is doing with Splena, but in a slightly more detailed out manner from our focus.
Haven't you guys launched a? Is that out of wire, the newsletter?
Yeah. So that happened in October of last year. The India cable. It's been very clearly billed as a paid product from the start. We've been sort of trialing it out with users and subscribers since October of last year. Our content cadence is pretty fixed. Our subscriber numbers are healthy, and we're sort of waiting to see what's the right time to turn on the subscription tab and go behind the paywall for that. But our focus is that we're sort of going to create a number of these niche products that people are willing to pay for. So it becomes part of my sustainability mix as well. It's not just about creating products for the sake of saying that we have XYZ numbers of products, but it's about creating products that actually people will value. So we're actually going to put value into those products and give users experiences that they've not had before with respect to news.
So are you trying to use your new products to broaden your audience, or are you trying to get more money from the audience you already have?
Both, actually. There are certain audiences that, for example, science, right? We bundled out science as a separate website last year.
Yeah, and done it very well.
Yeah, and so I mean, the focus was that was again coming off understanding where our readers are. We were getting a significantly high number of page views on science for our science reportage, and we actually had focused on journalism in science from the very beginning. So our map is pretty clear. We focus on journalism. We see what's working when we do that, and if there is a product to be made out of it, and if there is value that we can derive out of it, the next step is to do that. And then subsequently, we look at areas like monetization, because monetization, for our understanding of monetization, is a little different from probably what a traditional media house.
Because you're a non-profit as well, right?
Yes. So we typically tend to look at monetization as a way to sort of keep that particular product sustainable, as opposed to sort of add to my top line overall in the larger scheme. I really want to sort of if I roll out a podcast and I think that the podcast needs to be sustainable in of itself, then we look at monetizing it. If we think that it can't be sustainable in of itself, we'll fund it through regular resources, and we'll keep it going as a open for all kind of product. So that's our decision rubric is based on these parameters for products that we're planning to roll out and the ones that are actually in the offering in a couple of months.
Sure. Yeah. So that's interesting. So that goes from a different, it's a different kind of approach than, let's say, when I was doing first post for Network 18, a lot of those conversations are, you are chasing the market. It's like people love gaming. Let's do something in gaming. It's a different kind of where they're really like, oh, people are listening to podcasts. We should also do a podcast, right? That's a different way.
We held away from that. We, for example, we don't have an app. Everybody sort of keeps pushing us to say, why do you not have a mobile app? My answer is pretty straightforward. I don't have a product rationale for a mobile app. You get all my news on my mobile website, which is beautifully delivered. My AMP is top notch. I can build more experiences right into your browser. I don't need to create an app, which for me will be an overhead that I don't have the finances to manage. So for me, the decisions are fairly straightforward when it comes to these things. If I have a product rationale, there will be a product. If I don't have a product rationale, there is no vanity that we're chasing. So there's no point in sort of building those things out.
Also,
Okay,
so Lakshmi, it's also very important that when you are looking at a rationale, it's, you need to be sure that, for example, you spoke of people are chasing, certain formats or certain categories, whether it's gaming. You should know what is your inherent strength. You do not need to really play the market as the dynamics are now. You can perhaps go and create a whole new dynamics around it, right? So I think sometimes, re-looking and reinventing that curve is very important. So not something that you need to do. It's good to follow the users, but it would be foolhardy to assume that what's working for others would work for me. You would need to do something a little more different.
Yeah,
or
you
something
can't say
that
me
would-
too. I'll also do the same thing.
Very true.
Right. So my next question, and actually I'm going to start with Indranil in this. So, you've talked a little bit about your journey, being print. I mean, Outlook is a hugely prestigious. I mean, in terms of brand value, when they talk about brand value, there's, it's hard to compete with Outlook, right? I mean, you have a storied history, you've had great editors, you continue to do well, you're known for great journalism. But there was a clear sense. So I want to talk about basically with each one of you. Actually, when I say 6 years ago, probably that's all of, that's a life cycle of Wire. But basically, moving away from just your product, it's like, where do you think where we were about 5-6 years ago, where you did have the Wire, alt news, live law, even Outlook really starts to go digital around then, right? You have a sort of almost digital boom where you have lots and lots and lots of like small kind of alternative products bubbling up, where it's not just the big four or the big five, or even products just coming out of the big media houses. And a lot of them doing a lot of logical Indian. There are lots of them of different sizes, different types. iDiva, which is out of Times of India, but on the other hand, you also have you used to have Scoop Whoop. I think you still have Scoop Whoop, right? Why am I saying used to? Okay. So you had a lot of these things. So I was wondering where you think things have moved in the past 5 years in terms of just the digital landscape or even print. Actually, I'm also okay. I'm happy to actually talk about print. I think we only talk about digital as though people don't read print anymore. People still do read print. I think you're muted. Is it me who can't hear?
Sorry. No. I was
Okay.
muted. Okay. So let's start from print and then move to digital. I think that would be an interesting 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we had done a lot of homework in the past as well. I mean, even when print was not really doing too well, and there was a lot of pressure on print. For the last 5 years, we all know and we all realize that print is really not doing very well, and it is bound to go down at one point of the time. I think COVID really helped us to further go down. I think so that I think is quite evident and quite well accepted. But what we also, whenever we were doing our homework, we always realized there was no money to be made from digital. So every time that we were actually doing our business plans, it was always on a negative when we were trying to do that. And it was certainly not making any money or not making any sense to even try the way that the number one or the number two was trying to build up their businesses. And, in terms of chasing chasing the fact that, do you want to really spend hundreds of people in your newsroom and then, huge product teams, huge back-end technology, etc., etc. But now what we have realized, and this is something which I'm talking about as we are now, that there is a huge scope that has been built in this process to learn from the mistakes and to learn from the mistakes and to build from scratch. See, this is something which I very strongly believe. There is nothing called late in the digital business. You can start from where you are. So now when we actually look at it and when we say that, okay, fine, who is your reader? What is the niche that you want to target? What do you want to get out of your readers? Do you really want to be number one? Do you really chase such huge numbers? Because those numbers really do not give you the returns that you want to. That is when we realize that it's very important to now get into the digital foray and use the legacy of the brand Outlook, and therefore, try and build a very sustainable business model. See, I can really vouch for the fact that if you try to do too many things, you will fail. In the current context, even in the current context, we will fail. So it is better to do something at a slow pace, at a steady pace, but at the same time, keep building up what Mithun also said, keep building up according to what the readers want, what your specialization is, what the market will accept. If we can answer them and gradually build it, I think it is going to be a nice journey, and it is a positive journey, I would rather say, where there will be healthy returns, and healthy returns would mean that there will be more investment in the business. So I think the time has come, and that's what we realize in Outlook, and we have started making all the announcements that we want to do, and we are going to do in the next few years.
Right. And do you think your Outlook user has changed in the last 5 years? I guess that's my question. Do
Okay,
you
okay.
think the Outlook, you think the person who was reading Outlook 6, 7 years ago is still the same person? And do they think in the same way? And do they read you for the same reasons?
So Lakshmi, I'll answer it in a different way. The age of the magazine has caught on, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's certainly 25 years. So anybody who was reading Outlook at 18 is today 18 plus 25, right? So therefore,
Right.
obviously the age has caught up. So therefore, your reader's profile has changed. You know,
Hmm.
so your core readers of the magazine sector that we used to cater to has really moved up on age. So therefore, it's a lot of work that we will have to do even at our digital strategy to ensure that how do we bring down the age of the reader. Now it's a daunting task. It's not easy. It's very easy to say, but it's very
Yes,
difficult.
how do you get a 24-year-old to read Outlook today, right?
That's right. That's right. So therefore, reinventing is the only option that we have, and we will have to do that. But
Hmm.
how to deliver? What is an interesting content? How is the market really changing? How is the is news being consumed? These are all the matrices that we will have to be very, very careful and answer. And we have
Hmm.
to keep experimenting because we don't have an answer that, oh, you do this and you will automatically get the results. I don't think it works like that. So
Right.
the change will have to be softly done and tried and tested and sort of adapted to. But in a digital world, change is a very short term opportunity. You just need to continuously keep changing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think those are the fundamental challenges that we will face as we go along in the journey. But I just want to add one more thing to here that
Hmm.
look at that look at an 18-year-old today consuming. He wants humor, he wants satire,
Hmm.
he wants intelligent content, he
Hmm.
wants knowledge, he wants
Hmm.
entertainment, but all he wants is in a very smart way and in a
Hmm.
very intelligent way. I think that is the area that an Outlook kind of a product should ideally be able to take up and build our business from there.
Hmm.
That's my
Okay.
opinion.
Sorry, I have a very bratty daughter. She just decided to come in the back. Anyway, so no, so I want to ask that question to you, and I also Shivain, and I want to combine it with one of the questions we have. So one of the questions we have for the audience is what are the top three media formats being consumed by rural India? But I'm going to combine that with where do you think the rural India's consumption or the audience or that user has moved in the last 5 years? Because when we talk about users, we tend to talk about metro. I'd be very curious about whether you think there has been an evolution in the last 5 to 6 years in the rural user, in that tier two, tier three.
So, Lakshmi, it's almost known now. It's a known fact that having cheaper internet rates, you've seen a very, very large boom of video consumption, and that's prima facie being driven through the rural India. Okay,
Hmm.
the amount of video consumption that is happening in rural India, obviously on the back of cheaper internet rates and far easier access to internet, is one of the biggest format of content that we are seeing currently,
Hmm.
or I should say, as a ecosystem, everybody would be seeing.
Hmm.
Uh, that's part one to your question. Part two, as an audience and as where has the market moved over the last 5 years, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
as a salesperson, I somehow look at it and I say that the biggest benefit, I think, what sometimes we either tend to not give that much focus, is the RPU has really gone up for your user. Brands have become much smarter
Hmm.
in how they want to make more out of the same user. So
Right.
innovations are coming in. There are a lot of ways, and that is taking and you're seeing an uptake happening on the RPU, right?
Hmm.
Uh, from the audience perspective, again, the coronavirus crisis has actually seen a substantial increase for news sites across, right? Uh, Unfortunately, what also we have to keep in mind is that over the last few years, and I'm saying over the last 5 years, what's also taken a huge spike is the concern of fake news, right? So what fake news was not that rapid when you were talking
Yes.
2015, and since you're going back there, the challenge of fake news today is far more
Sure.
real, right? And we are, and it's far more easier than before to circulate fake news. So you land up seeing an audience, and I'm just saying this as a larger assumptive number. I'm saying it personally in my understanding that largely you feel the audience is somehow becoming more and more uh, proudly misinformed, right? They're somehow getting a sense that, okay, the information that they are bestowed upon by whatever source is factual and correct. And herein, actually, I think is the time where the trust factor comes in, right? As a group, India Today group, we understand this, and I'm sure all other responsible brands understand the inherent need to now have a fact-checking bureau, right? So ensure that you have a fact-checking bureau that is giving out the right information, and that value that you bring to your user adds to the credibility that the user will give back to your brand, right? Uh, I'm going to touch on a few more points because over the last 5 years, also another shift that you are seeing that's happening more so in digital is the fact that as a legacy brand, uh, or as a news publisher, you're largely becoming more a producer of content, and the distribution somehow of that content is not really majoritarily owned by you, right? So it is being owned across third party platforms. All brands, I think, are cognizant to that owning the distribution of content is becoming more and more increasingly important, and hence they are looking at how they can become smarter into becoming more relatable to their audience. When I say social first, I don't mean being on social
Do you
platforms.
mean that they want to go directly to the consumer? They don't want to be reliant on a Google or a Facebook or an Insta?
So they would actually go on to any social media platform because that's where the news is majoritarily being consumed. And major of the news that is being consumed today is somehow, I mean, all numbers put together, if the trade is there, is at a larger skew tilted towards the social platforms. So as a news publisher, you want to own that distribution
Is that
power.
but isn't that a challenge to monetize for you?
It would be a challenge, I believe, in the
Because they're
sense
not
for all.
consuming you. I mean, Insta is monetizing it. If you are like presenting it on Insta, they're making lots and lots of money out of your content.
So
Monetizing your content on Insta when you're a news organization, because that's a big change that you pointed to, is that people are not even going directly to websites anymore. They're scrolling on Insta, they're scrolling on Twitter, they're scrolling on Facebook, but really Insta now, which has really come out as a big sort of consumption of news. So but if that is the shift, isn't that a challenge from a monetization point of view?
see, that is the challenge that exists in the ecosystem, right? That is and that again is the fact that how there is obviously a way to overcome every challenge and every hurdle. And I am of the firm belief that it is with time that the good brands will own the distribution. It's when you start owning the credibility factor and the trust factor. Today, convenience is superseding the credibility factor. Let me first put that as a factor. But somewhere with time, your younger generation also will start building credibility and trust with your brand and will make you the first choice of option, so that I believe is also going to be on the anvil, and that's where all reputed publishers would be also looking at it in a more larger uh, focus, right? uh,
Sure,
the third
sure.
also want to state is that over the last 5 years and to now, our audience is becoming far more smarter, right? So they've perhaps started, if smarter is one way of putting it, they've also started respecting their privacy more, right? So you see, whether it's Apple or Google taking cognizance of that and reworking their strategies around data privacy. So once you have a, a, a stronger I would say as a publisher, you would need to look at how you can personalize your content to your users by, taking their consent in a far more, far more communicative way
Transparently.
to them. Yeah, transparent way to them, right? So they want to be, you would need to be honest to your user. So I think, the user is not the same as it was in 2015. These the users now are far more smarter, and we see that happening across brands.
Sure.
That, that's my take.
Great. So, Mithun, so one of the questions is, do you see a future for paywall models in India? And I want you to look at the last 6 years from that point of view. Do you think that the Indian user is more willing to pay? I mean, I know Wire has a donor model, right? Primarily, you don't have to pay, but you're invited to pay. Whether that is a sort of a different way of going about it, or you have a paywall like Splainer is behind a paywall. You have Ken, you have Morning Context. Some people are experimenting with newsletters and Substack, for example. But in general, and Hindu, a lot of bigger newspapers are going behind a paywall.
This is
So, where have we come in terms of the Indian user's mindset when it comes to paying? And when do they pay? And why do they pay? And where are we going? And can everyone go behind a paywall one day?
So I'll quickly just sort of lay out what the Wire experience is, because I honestly will not be able to sort of extrapolate it all the way through to Times of India. But when we started off, we were a big chunk of our operating revenue sort of came from um, the grant foundations were making for us, right? So we had a couple of foundations that made substantial grants initially. Today, in 6 years, it's transitioned to almost 70 to 80% of my operational cost is paid by my reader. So, and as my costs have increased, that value has also increased, right? My median gift, so to speak, is significantly higher than what my average or lowest amount is on my site. So, is there an appetite to pay? Yes, but you would establish what, right? For what? We've always pitched our thing as paying for journalism. It's not about the product. It's not about access. It's not about convenience. For us, it's the line is pretty straight. As I said, there is journalism. We're practicing that. It costs money. That's the reality. And we'd like to keep this sustainable. And the best way to do that is for you to pay. That's our messaging to our audience. That's step one. Step two, like I said, is identifying where our niches are and whether we can actually add significant value that we can ask people to pay for. So we're very clear that news as such will not be behind the paywall. We want to keep that very, very clear. That's a line that's fairly, it's drawn fairly strongly. News will always be available for everybody to access because there is a democratic function of news and journalism. And that's not something we are sort of, waiting to monetize. What we are monetizing and what we are seeing success in monetizing is the idea of giving them giving the power users, the core users, the ones who want to sort of get a little more involved in your process, giving them significantly more interactive ways of consuming that same thing, giving them access to news hooks into news in manners that they wouldn't get otherwise, and they are sort of keen on doing that. And this is not something that the lay audience or
Give
the
me an
general public
example. Give me an example.
So, for example, we're starting off with our YouTube memberships, which will sort of kick off in July. In this, while all our news reportage, while all our shows will be available for free, there will be pieces that are behind the scenes, and we're not calling them just AMAs. We're doing behind the scenes where there are anecdotal. What goes into doing this report? If, like, for example, the report about the Barabanki mosque demolition, right? So there is a lot that does not get into the package, right? There is a lot of that information which a news junkie would be very keen on sort of getting in. And they are the ones who will then sort of propagate the rest of your content as they move forward. So they get that as an exclusive as part of the perks. The app that we're sort of contemplating on is about delivering significant value on particular topics led by experts. It's not about giving you news in article formats, right? We want you to sort of understand the context of what is happening. And for that, there is a premium to be paid because it's not the general publishing of news. We're seeing a positive sort of reception for things like that, where they see intent as being very clear. And I'd like to sort of make a point that sort of goes a little contrary to what Shivin had mentioned, and it's not necessarily contrarian to his point, but our audience is primarily direct and search. Of that, primarily direct. 75% of my audience today is direct and search. Social media, and we have deliberately built it out in a way where we are doing editorial value. That editorial value leads to direct audience. And now the direct audience will go deeper into my content experiences. So the funnel has to be really clear from the very start. And the funnel has to be clear on all fronts. It has to be clear on the editorial side. It has to be clear on the technology side. It has to be clear on the product side of things. When you sort of have the same vision across all three pillars of your organization, then what you have the option to do is try out different ways in which you can expose content to your readers, right?
Okay, so let me ask you a question then about the paywall, right? Since the person said, do you see a future for the paywall model? Do you think the person who will pay will always be that power user? It will be that hardcore user. It will be hard to make a paywall work for a general, I really kind of want to know this, but I don't really want this in-depth, behind the scenes. I don't want, full deep dive. I'm not looking for a new. If you think of it from a text point of view, I'm not talking about just wire, right? Like a New Yorker. Oh, I don't want like this really, high quality, deep dive, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to pay for it. So will it always be then the hardcore, someone who's a hardcore news user one way or the other?
No, I think what you would also see is you could probably convert a lot of people who believe in your brand. So that plays vital, right? Say, for example, if the New York Times today has a lot of subscribers or the Guardian has a large number of subscribers, it's also for the brand. So while you're building all of these out, you also need to focus on what value you're sort of bringing in, right? So there will be people who will pay for the brand. They'll say, I subscribe to The Economist, not just because I get the magazine or because there is a certain value to The Economist that they have in their mind. So you got to consistently build that out, and that's through your work, right? And whatever that work is, it's definitely through your work.
Right. So like Splainer has a, we only 1 year old, but we have a founding membership, right? Which is literally, you just pay more for what you already get for no reason other than the fact that you believe in Splainer and you value the brand and the value the work it does. So you choose not to pay 1,500 for an annual sub. You choose to pay 3,000 to help support the work they do, right? So it's a sort of, I think tip jar is the wrong. I never liked the tip jar analogy. I don't think it's a tip jar, but I think it is sort of kind of, I really believe in this work and I don't want it to disappear or whatever it is, right?
Lakshmi, I just wanted to add to this what Mithun said. See, my belief is that paywall for individual publishers will work initially, but finally it will be an aggregator which will work. So everybody cannot be Netflix. Finally, that's where the challenge is going to be, even in the paywall business. That you can keep building your paywall businesses, but every subscriber will not keep paying for you. And that's where there is going to be a lot of competition and a lot of challenge. as to how to then sort of draw the consumer to your platform. So I think subsequently an aggregator will work because there will be pay wallets, and in the wallets you can sort of use the money that you load in and read whatever you want to read from different platforms.
Right. So it's not
Just
painful to keep.
answer,
Sivan?
I mean, to add on to what Indranil you were saying. Uh, I believe that today, when you have good content, right, and I'm talking not necessarily for news, but even across entertainment, like you spoke for Netflix, uh, at the cost of sounding repetitive, there is research that says that today the younger audience are willing to pay for content provided they believe their data is safe, their privacy is assured, right? So
True.
one first thing first, that the content has to be good. It has to be a content that the user values and cherishes.
Sure.
Beyond that, if they believe that you are giving them added value, or they are feeling safer and they find it like a more secure environment because they understand that you respect their privacy, there is an opportunity over there that exists where you can then get far more better returns behind the paywall.
Okay, so we almost at the time of wrapping up. So I'm going to ask you a quick question. As in, look, we're in a sort of very weird, precarious time. We've gone through a pandemic. The future looks very sort of. It's hard to be like a very confident pundit, I think, in these days. Given all of that, though, if you had to look 3 years from now, and I'm not asking for specific brands, I want to just do things like who do you think? I want you to fill in the blanks. People who do X will win and succeed, and people who do Y or not able to do Z will probably fall by the wayside. If you can sort of just talk quickly to that. I'll start with you,
Yeah.
Mithil.
Like, so, I mean, from our perspective, it's very clear.
No, I don't want you to talk to me about Vaya.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just saying that in general.
I want you to talk about as a general person. So this is not a product specific question.
Right. So, journalism and very clearly laid out editorial products have a future.
What do you mean by
If it's
clearly laid out? As in they have a USP?
where you're sort of very clear about what your editorial stance is. I think people are very, very aware of that. And if you sort of try to sort of put a fig leaf over it and say, no, we are the classical unbiased
Objective.
reporting, and we're objective. People see through that. You have to be very clear about where you stand. You can't sort of try and play all sides at all times and say, okay, this is where we are. And this is the position that almost all major publications across the world also take, right? And in India, somehow we sort of shied away from this for a variety of reasons. Having that clearly in place is of value, and that's something that's going to be hugely useful going forward. Because people see that. The reason why people pay, the reason why people download a particular thing that you've created, go to your website or whatever, consume your product, will be because of that. Because they see that this is what you stand for, this is who you are, and that doesn't matter what it is. I'm not talking about ideology. I'm not talking about the line that's drawn. I'm talking very clearly about, are you communicating transparently with your audience? If you are, I think it's pretty straightforward. There is a future for that. If you're not, if you're playing all sides, I think you will struggle.
Okay. So so you think that irrespective of what your politics are, right, left, whatever it is, but you have to be clear and you think that's what people are attracted to. But doesn't that also kind of mean that your people who don't agree with you are never going to read you then or watch you?
I'm talking specifically about longevity here. I mean, you're saying that what is going to thrive over the next 3 years. I'm saying this is what is going to
okay, you're saying products that have a built-in audience, people who really believe what you stand for, believe like, who you are the ones who are going to stick with you, and that's what will help you survive, right?
If you communicate that to them, I'm saying it's not just of believing. Even if you sort of if you're clear about who you are, right. I think that works.
What about you, Indranil?
Okay, I will take a little different path to say that stand up against the aggregators. Otherwise, they are not going to let you survive. So the media business itself will die if we do not stand up against the technology aggregators and sort of actually fight our battle and let them pay for our content. Who will pay for my content? That's very important. We are now taking a different route. We are taking an easier route to go to the consumer to pay for it. But look at what Australia has. India has to stand up and say, pay for my content if you are distributing it. Unless and until we don't stand together and fight this battle, we are all going to fall on the way path.
Right. So that basically that's like Australia and also Europe is sort of
That's right. Yeah.
that direction, right? Saying to Google that why should you be able to monetize
Absolutely. Absolutely. How can you just play on my content? I mean, every aggregator is actually taking my content and distributing it. If I'm talking about the technology technology aggregators, they're taking my content, they're distributing, they're doing a top line, they're doing a bottom line. But what are we doing? We are just struggling to create more and more content, and it is impossible to survive.
No, that's a good point. Shivain?
So I'm going to add on to both the points of Mithun and Indranil and then just summarize it in the fill in the blank that you gave. In one word, to summarize what Mithun said, credibility comes in as a big play, right? After everything that you do, the user has to believe that your content is credible, and that is going to be, I am saying this perhaps the umpteenth time, that's at the most paramount level when you're looking at the future for across the next 3 years. Just to also take another spin to what Indranil said, uh, it's actually playing the game in the way it's being played now. So being content only is not enough. You need to be technology first, and you need to be playing that game smart. So as a brand, you need to be very nimble. You need to be able to adapt to that change. Technology is going to be at the forefront of every change.
Are you thinking of something like AI, machine learning? Do you think those kinds of things, or?
So, again, that's a given that AI has a future. Is that the only part where I'm trying to, in a nutshell, say that that's the only element to it? No, that is not. AI is just one of the, larger elements in the piece. Uh, if I was to, again, Lakshmi, answer, because the answer is far simpler if I put it in the fill in the blank that you gave, that brands that would succeed, gap, I mean, as a blank, are those brands that are able to grab the shrinking attention span of the user. As with the next 3 years, the attention span of your user, you have to be prepared, is only going to get further marginalized. And you should be in a position to say that I am going to be able to own some mind space of that, right? So for me, that is what will, eventually make the brand succeed or fail. So that's it.
No, that's a really good, point, because in the end, the attention economy is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So I think actually the challenge for any news brand going forward is that we have to get attention and we have to make money, right? And both are very precious and scarce. So to get both, it becomes a very challenging, right? I actually think, for example, if I was news in shorts, I'd be most upset at Insta, because Insta basically delivers the news in shorts experience, on your social platform while you're doing other things. You can DM your friends, you can like do ding, 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 look at like Wire, look at Quint, look at whatever, and you're getting your little capsules of news, and it's good enough, right? Or your NDTV or Explainer, whatever. But that's not a user you can monetize. So actually, the two things go together. The user that gives you the attention will also give you money, right?
Yeah.
And also, I do not believe monetization is a challenge. I said this, when we started, that the RPUs are increasing.
Really, Shivain? You should tell tiny startups like me that monetization is not a problem.
No, I know, I genuinely believe this. I'm not saying this, that if you are going to the brand and you are showing value, and I'm saying this, a
Mm.
lot of your content, I mean, some of your content that does not have high traction is still giving us very high monetization. Okay.
Mm. Mm.
It's purely the value of the content, right?
Mm.
So we see that value and we've seen it. So again,
Mm.
I'm saying it's really the value that you are willing to put out there when you're talking to the marketer.
Sure.
I see that. I've seen that over the years, and I believe in it. So,
Mm.
and there's a lot of success stories around it. We see it. I'm sure others also do.
Yes, for sure.
So
For sure.
that's so that.
And I think the first thing we need to do is stop treating the user like they're stupid, that they're just, eyeballs to be
Sure.
monetized. If you treat them with respect and put value out, like you say, Shiveen, and say that you deserve value, here is something valuable.
True.
I think that's what they respond to. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you,
I
Lakshmi.
certainly learned
Everyone.
a lot. Yeah. And especially because I'm a founder of a very new startup. So any gyan you give me is very good for me. So thank you very, very much. It was such a
Thank you.
delight.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting you all. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Bye.
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye, 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 bye. Bye.
So that was a really, really insightful session. And I would like to thank all the panelists and the moderator for joining us today and sharing some key insights. And I believe that all of us had certain key takeaways from it.
Thank
So on
you.
that note, right.
Thank you.
So on that note, we are concluding this edition of PubVision, the business of digital publishing. And I believe it has added value to the professional lives of every single person attending this. I would
Thank
like to thank once again all of you for participating and making this happen. Special thanks to our knowledge partner, Kantar, for partnering with us for this highly insightful day. And also to inform all the delegates that the video of this event will be available on demand, and all the registered delegates will be notified about it. Same. We shall keep
Thank
you
you.
updated for our upcoming events, and you can visit our website, which reads www.iamai.in, to get more information about all our upcoming events and be partners with us too. Thank you, everyone, once again, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
inviting.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, 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 bye.
Bye. Bye.